Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Brent Cook. I'm the product manager for Summon. Today, for the Summon update, I'll talk a little bit about what we did in 2019. Seems like so long ago, but there's some great functionality that came out of that year. We'll review 2020, what's on the roadmap, what we've done, and what's to come. I'll touch on some of the things that we got as part of the launch of CDI. I'll review what's in the preview environment right now for the May release and talk about some of the targets for upcoming releases. And then finally, I'll touch on some best practices and support materials for working remotely. We did a specific Q&A session based around COVID-19 and working remotely, and I wanted to make sure I shared that information here as well. So let's dive in with 2019. It was a busy year. We had our 4 quarterly releases. We hit each release on time. A lot of great things came last year, such as Citation Trail, adding Oxford University Press for topic sources, a variety of things. I'm going to focus in on a few features that I think are important to remind you of. Unpaywall, for example, that came out in the last quarter of 2019. That adds direct links to PDFs from Unpaywall anywhere where there's a DOI match. And those links should take you either specifically to the PDF or to a landing page that has the PDF on it. It means you can access the full text without additional login information. You can change the name on the link. It does say PDF right now as the label. You can change that to whatever you'd like under the Translations tab. Currently, the Facets don't recognize Unpaywall. So, for example, Unpaywall is open access, but if you click on open access, it will not result will not show up in that faceted search purely because of Unpaywall. It has to be marked as open access as well. We'll work in future releases on syncing that up so that the facets do function the way we'd like. But for now, this is a great way to add access to open access content in your search results. We also did a lot of work around video improvements. We added a lot more thumbnail images for video content to the index. We also did some work with the icon itself. We added the little play triangle icon on top of the image. You can now click on that image and that will take you to a video player. It will either launch right there or take you to a page that has the video to make viewing and accessing that video content a little bit easier. We've also done a bit to improve reporting last year. In particular, we added open access reporting to the facet usage report. As you can see here on the right-hand side of the screen, it now appears in the lower right-hand corner. You can see the red box around it where it says open access is true. This will show the number of times someone executed a search with open access activated as a facet. We also added IEDL reporting or clicks to a specific title. That'll help you determine what content is being used and how it's being accessed from someone. This report's in a slightly different place than the other reports. It's in the Summon community folder in OBI or Oracle Business Intelligence. If you haven't accessed that before, you go into the admin console and there is a reporting tab and you just click on that and it will take you to the OBI platform. The report's called Title Clicks and it reports on the number of clicks per title. We've got a lot planned for 2020 as well. We're halfway through the year almost, and we've already got a lot done, and we have plenty more to go. A few things to note on this roadmap. As I always say, this is for informational purposes only. The roadmap may change based on a variety of inputs or additions. In particular, I want to highlight this year because with everyone working remotely, we want to make sure that we take into consideration any impacts to remote access and support. And so if any feature is highly risky or may change workflows significantly during these remote working times, we want to make sure that we're thoughtful about that and that we either time it appropriately or delay it. You'll see as I show the roadmap in a moment, we did take some time to think about the May release and make some adjustments there. Inclusion of functionality will be based on capacity and the potential of risk versus benefit. We'll keep you posted on that. We expect the rest of the release schedule to go as planned, but again, we want to be sure that we're thoughtful of the new environment in which we're working in. So I'll talk a little bit in a moment about the February release and what we have going on with CDI. We'll talk some about the May release and what you'll see with link data and WhatsApp integration right now in the preview environment. Again, we wanted to limit the amount of changes we made since we knew that everyone's work environment was changing as well. And I should also note that we're taking the same considerations for our maintenance releases. In April, we skipped the maintenance release because we didn't have anything that needed to be done that month, and we just wanted to be extra cautious. We will resume our maintenance releases on the first Wednesday of months where there isn't a quarterly release in June. So June and July should have maintenance releases. So let's talk a little bit about February and the launch of CDI. I think the biggest news there was we went live on February 5th without too much noise. There was a couple of little bumps here and there, but for the most part, it was a smooth launch. Everyone has been on CDI since then. A few things that includes is improved performance and an upgrade to Solar 7, the most stable current version of Solar, some new facets and abilities to sort. I'll talk about those in a moment. Some match and merge improvements. I'll get some details around that. And then the ability to search by ORCIDs. And of course, the content that we have in the index continues to grow with new content providers and institutional repositories that we got with the move to CDI. So let's talk about the new facets for a moment. In February, we got the author creator facet and the collection facet or database facet. You can go into the settings in the admin console under facets. And then either move things to the enabled column if you'd like those facets to appear, or move them to disabled if you don't. And then you can determine the order by changing that order there in the enabled column, and you can also change what's expanded and collapsed using that functionality there as well. You also have now the ability to sort results by title or author. Those are particularly useful for smaller sets of search results, particularly if you're looking for a title that may be repeated. Say, for example, a performance of a piece of music. It's the same piece of music by title, but it's performed by different orchestras. That type of sort will really help your patrons find exactly what they want. And then finally, we added the recently added items facet in the March maintenance release. So you may not have taken a look at that. It does show new records to the index, and you can do that for the past week, the past 30 days, or the past 90 days. And again, that should be only things that are new to the index. If you're seeing things, so catalog refreshes or updates to records should not show up in that facet. If you are seeing things that appear there that you don't expect, please open a ticket and let us know the details around that. There may be some different conditions that would make a record appear new when it's not. Again, we want to make sure that that is all working properly based on the data that we have. Next, I want to review some of the match and merge improvements we got with CDI. This greatly reduced the footprint of duplicates within the index. We added newsletters to the merge process. Those were previously not included as part of the merge process because the content type really didn't need it in earlier versions. But we've seen that the amount of content around that grow, so we added that to reduce the overall footprint of the newsletters. We've improved subtitle handling. There are cases where subtle variations like extra spaces or some different punctuation might prevent things from merging. Since this is the subtitle and other elements match, we've loosened the rule there a little bit, and that's helped out as well. We've increased the overmatch limit, and what the overmatch limit is, it's a safety feature in the indexing process and the match and merge process to ensure that something doesn't get too many documents merged into one item. So for example, there are a lot of untitled poems out there, and they are all different, even though they all have this title of untitled. We don't want to combine those all into one record, so this was set to prevent that from happening. However, with the billions and billions of records that we now have in the index, we needed to increase that limit, and we were able to do so and reduce the number of duplicates without causing any or minimal inappropriate matches. We also relaxed language matching between the language detected and cis language fields. We standardized quotation marks. There were still some points where different formats would prevent merging. We cleaned that up. And then finally, we've added to our synonyms list better handling of things like color versus color, for example. We also now have the ability to search by ORCID. So if this ID is in the metadata, you can find it directly by searching ORCID : and then the ORCID ID itself. This does search both authors and contributors. And again, this is based on the metadata we have in the index. We're working to get more and more of those IDs in the the index. Last year, just before we launched CDI, we did a big push and we increased it from 1.2 million records to 8.2 million records, adding over 7 million records in about a 3-month period. And so last year, the content grew immensely, up from 200 million at the beginning of 2019. That was an add of about 250,000 open access records in the index. That's 61 new institutional repositories available as open access. We added 38 new providers overall to the index with a move to CDI. We also increased the number of records in the index to almost 4 billion. We started with less than 3.5 billion records at the beginning of 2019. So again, that was some impressive growth, and we continue to see that pattern as we move forward. Next, I want to talk a few minutes about the May release. Again, we tried to limit the number of UI changes and back-end changes there that would affect workflow in order to make sure that your transition to working from home or working remotely was as smooth as possible. One of the things that we are releasing is linked data. This is about leveraging that linked data to create better relationships within the index and on your pages, and to expose that for use within Summon and in linking to external sources. In particular, right now, we are focused on how to expose additional metadata for search engine optimization support, excuse me. So by working with the items on the catalog detail page, we can open Summon to web crawlers via sitemap. So this will be configurable on what portion of the data can be crawled. This is going to help drive traffic to sites like Google and Bing, and it'll provide those crawlers with meaningful and descriptive content using JSON LD, which is the linked data portion of JSON. And it'll create canonical URLs for Summon resources. So having worked in the search engine industry for a while, I know that it's critical to have URLs that don't have a lot of variables or punctuation in them, because those will stop a crawler from seeing those pages. So having a canonical URL is important for visibility to search engines. What does that mean for you? A lot of it will be the backend and the data piece and the connections there, but it's visible on the detail page. That'll be the landing page for search engines to find. It'll also be the one that users will land on if they search and find it in a search engine. So we need to make sure that that page shows that there's a greater library site beyond it, and needs to invite those users to look around and discover more on your site. It needs to provide detailed overview of the resource itself, since that's what they're interested in, and that's what the search engines are going to pick up. And then there needs to be ways for the user to be engaged in actions, like citing it, emailing it, saving, viewing in a classic catalog. That includes basically the main changes you'll see here on the user interface are the buttons on the right-hand side there for cite and email and so on. We've cleaned those up and added some iconography there, made them look a little more modern. We've also included additional information on the page overall, so that you should have more metadata exposed on the page, and of course more that will be useful for those crawlers and users. We also added WhatsApp integration. We know that with your patrons having to access your site remotely more and more these days, that being able to connect with them is important. We already had a few different resident or integrated chat clients in the Summon user interface, such as Question Point and Library Help and SpringShare's help app. All of those had support. We've now added WhatsApp support. For this, all you have to do is go into the back end and configure, go to the chat tab under settings. You'll see a configuration there for WhatsApp. You'll enter in the phone number for the phone that you're using for WhatsApp chat support. And then work from there. You'll click on either the two chat bubbles right up there, the dialog bubbles to launch the chat, as you can see in the screen grab. There's also the ability to have a chat icon show at the top of the screen or on the side of the screen. And again, the chat itself will be using the WhatsApp application on your smartphone, so you'll need to have that installed. Anything around the chat itself, saving of the chat, and whatnot, that's all handled on the WhatsApp side. We do pass it through though. And if you have more than one individual within your institution that wants to support this chat, you'll just need to go into the admin console and change whatever phone number you're using to direct it to the appropriate WhatsApp client. And when you make changes in the back end, just as a reminder, it takes about 5 minutes for those configurations to take hold. Sometimes quicker, but usually within 5 minutes it will be done. Next, I want to talk a little bit about what we have planned for the remainder of the year with the August release in November. Much of what you'll see in the August and November releases comes courtesy of the new enhancement request system, or NERS voting process. That is managed by Illuna. And a lot of the functionality that we see here, you hopefully saw a post that they put today on the listserv talking about it. It's a lot of great changes to the front end, and will hopefully make your lives a little bit easier and help your patrons find what they're looking for. For August, we've got a lot of really good things, and I want to talk through some of the things that we have there. Again, from the NERS voting, this is adding a section number to course IDs and course reserve pages. So for some of our customers, this should help with the display of multiple section numbers with each result in the course reserve page. We're also working on making a consistent experience and linking back to search results. There are a variety of things that you can do to link back to searches. You can go into the saved items folder, or you can go to the advanced search, for example, and getting back to the search results is different for each one of those. We're looking at making that consistent so that users easily navigate their way around. We're also working on improving peer review labeling as part of the user interface. Right now, you can facet down to just peer reviewed content using the facet, but there's no clear way when it's a mixed set of results that include peer review to be able to see easily which one is peer reviewed. So we'll work on that and labeling that more clearly. We're also looking at adding the display of book and ebook editions and publication years to be able to differentiate between editions of books and ebooks. And of course, this, as well as others that rely on information coming from the index, it will be reliant on the metadata quality to make this really an effective feature. But again, we believe that the quality is there for this feature to move forward. And then finally, are reviewing the Summon user interface for accessibility compliance. In particular, we're focusing on the WCAG 1 accessibility guidelines. Those came out last year, and we want to make sure that we are not just compliant, but that we are meeting our patrons where we need to, and making sure that the content is accessible as much as can be. So as we review, we're in the process of doing a review right now, and as we identify items that need to be addressed around accessibility, we will add those into the product. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the November release. So we've still got some time between now and then. It'll go live on the first Wednesday in November. And again, there's a lot of great things in here from the NERS voting process, clarifying author and editor and results and citations. It'll help distinguish between them in both the preview of the results and an exportation to citations. Again, this will be reliant on the metadata being present in order for author and editor to be displayed, but where possible, we will make this available. Bringing the database A to Z list within Summon, you do have the A to Z link at the top that you can put an EJP and things like that. But we know that people still sometimes want to find that database they're looking for. So we're taking a look at how we can integrate in maybe with a widget on the right-hand side or something like Database that allows you to provide more of an A to Z list and search function within that A to Z list within the Summon search results. We're also working with Best Bets here to improve that. We've heard from you, both from the idea exchange and in conversations with you, that many of you will use LibAnswer FAQs to get information, to store information and share it. And then you find that you are copying that over to Best Bets to make it available there, which is requiring double entry. So we want to simplify that as much as we possibly can. SpringShare has an API for LibAnswers, so we'll be working with that API in order to hopefully automate this process as much as we can. We're also working on making search refinements persistent. Currently, if you flip back and forth between basic and advanced searches, you can get to a point where you need to restart that entire process. So rather than losing any sort of refinements that you've made along the way, we want to make sure those stick with you as you move from basic to advanced and back. There's also this, we'll also be working on the Sierra integration in Q4. This is the initial phase. We're still in the early stages. Excuse me. Building requirements, looking at systems. The idea is that ultimately with integration with Sierra, this should allow for quicker, easier access to holdings or checking out content, and it should make administration easier for your staff. At this point in Q4, there probably won't be functionality we'll be releasing at that time. It will most likely be early adopters, early phases of this integration. We'll keep you posted as that work progresses, and that also feeds into another item from the NERS request, which is analysis for a SAML, federated, or Shibboleth login option. One of the features that's been on the ID Exchange and that I've heard about for a while, we do support things like save searches with things like Microsoft OneDrive and Google Drive. A lot of institutions don't use social logins or even block that information from their site. So people have asked for a different way to do this, and that's where this feature comes in. Basically, this is a large undertaking, and since we're working with doing some of this on Sierra, I was talking with the Luna subcommittee for NERS voting, and we talked about doing an analysis feature this year, and that's designed to help us take a large, desirable feature like this and break it into chunks that make it such that we can actually take action on it and start to build it. This first phase is just the analysis piece to determine the best path forward to improve integration. I mentioned save searches. We could probably expand this to do other things as well. So we'll take a look at what are the best integration opportunities we have there with other library services or save searches or other features within SAML. What will we get as part of this feature, courtesy of Luna working with us? And that is some outputs that will include the initial analysis and planning. We'll reach out to you to determine what your needs and priorities are. I know from conversations that I've had that working through single sign-on issues and authentication is a challenge across multiple systems within your environment. And so we want to learn about what you want, what are the challenges that you have, and how can we best meet those. And then at the end of the year, we'll have in Q4, we'll have a recommendation for the development of the functionality, feasibility of it, and any sort of milestones or phases that we can determine at that time. So at the end of the year, we should have a clear path forward or understand what's preventing us from getting there. Timing of the delivery of this functionality will be determined based on the outputs of that analysis. So we'll follow up with you then to let you know what we have planned with this functionality moving forward. A few other things that I want to talk about that have been at the top of the ID Exchange and then we'd like to see happen within SAML. But again, with the current environment, what we have, we're trying to be cautious. The things that we're thinking about are CDI improvements. Those will continue. That's not under review. We continue to work on that. Lots of Primo customers are moving into the system, and we will continue to look at performance, the functionality, and how the indexing process works and improve on that. We also are looking at the ability to separate books and ebooks when searching. This has been one of the #1 items on the ID Exchange for some time. I wanted to talk about this one in particular because I know reading that sentence, it sounds really simple. However, the merge records and the possibility of duplication issues complicate this feature. And when we've looked at implying this in the past, it actually increased the number of duplicates that we had to the point to make it a little too much noise. So we're taking a look at possible solutions. And we'll make a recommendation on that if at all possible. And again, the idea there is to have a physical items facet and a digital items facet, probably how that will come out. But again, this is a bit of a risk because it's taking a look at the index, and we'll keep you posted on what the status is for that. We know it's critical and it's important and it's something you want, and we are working to get there. Selective match and merge alternatives is another thing that's been at the top of the ID Exchange. Basically what that is right now with SAML, you can either merge with all the indexed your catalog records. The benefit of that is that that does associate your records with other records out there that may have full text or more metadata, making the relevance on them better. However, that also can sometimes mean that you have undesired information or content showing up in places like the facets due to metadata on the records that you're merging with. And so we're taking a look at a way to be a little more selective about that matching word. And if nothing else, make sure that the problematic metadata doesn't display. So again, we're taking a look at how we might be able to do that in our current environment. And then other ones that have impacted display that we know are important, and we'll see what we can do around. That's around 5xx notes fields, topic explorer on smaller screens, and the database recommender activation process. And we're going to be cautious with this, and we do want to do some work on this, but it will depend on how we can release that without much disruption. Finally, I want to highlight the idea exchange. That is where some of the ideas that came from this NERS voting process came from. I'll be updating the idea exchange in the next week. That will release any votes you have dedicated to things that have been planned for the roadmap. So you can reapply those to new features or other ones that are out there. So please take some time to go to the idea exchange. We will take the top idea exchange items to be candidates for the NERS voting cycle for 2021. And of course, I look at the idea exchange monthly and pull things off of there as well. So anything that doesn't get scheduled by me will be part of that voting process for the NERS cycle for 2021. So right now is a great time to go out there, create some new items, or vote on the existing ones. The URL's right there on the. Finally, I want to go over some key COVID-19 related resources and some of the things that we went over to help you out with some of your remote access work that you're doing now. So first off, much of this and information to support all Exlibris products can be found on the Trust Center. And of course, our statement regarding coronavirus is there as well. If you're like me, you're probably getting 20 emails a day talking about different systems and things both in your personal and your business or your working life that are talking about coronavirus status. And don't worry about keeping track of it. If you get information from us, you can just go to this Knowledge Center and we'll all be captured there. We also had a lot of questions around how you can direct patrons to search electronic materials by default. If you want to do that, you can modify your search box to search for full text by default. Just go to the widget builder, which you find in the hamburger menu, which is the 3 lines in the upper right-hand corner of your search screen. And you'll find the widget builder link there. You follow the steps there, and when you get to the search page, just select full text only under Refine Your Search in the Facets pane. Use the code generated by that process, and that will and replace any search box you have with that. That will make it so that the results by default will point people to online resources. They can still clear that facet if they'd like to get to other materials if they want, but it's just a way to direct them to electronic resources first if you think that will be of help. We have a bunch more additional tips and best practices out there. Tips to talk about access, talk about communication and engagement and integration. We'll send you this PowerPoint so you'll have some, or we'll make this PDF available so you'll have these links available if you'd like them. Chat and summon, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Remember, you can use it even if you're not on WhatsApp. There are other apps that we support. Just go under the admin console. You'll find it under chat and right here under settings. Custom panels is another great way to communicate information. I visit various library sites all the time, and I've been really impressed with the information you've got there around COVID-19 and how you're supporting your patrons remotely. If you haven't done this yet, it's a really simple thing to do. Go under Pages, Custom Panel Sections. You'll find it there. Be sure to check the Persistent button right there. Oh, excuse me. Be sure to check the Persistent button, or checkbox right underneath the editing section to make sure that that shows up for every search if you wanted to do that. And you can also at the bottom, the list of various custom panels that you have there, that is the order they'll show in. So anything you want to be at the top, just drag it to the top. Something to note on custom panels is that right now it is not supported by default on mobile. We do have, with more and more individuals accessing materials remotely, they're probably using mobile devices or tablets more frequently. A way to resolve this is just go into the Knowledge Center article titled, "What kind of things can a library put in Summon Custom Panels?" And there are some instructions in code that you can copy and paste into a custom panel. The custom panel will basically be invisible, but it will make it so that panels show up on mobile Summon sites. And we will work to put that into the main product, but for now, this is a quick and easy workaround that can solve that issue. Finally, I want to touch on database recommender and best bets. These are great ways to highlight content or to get other information out there for folks. So if you'd like, you can go and add tags to these. They are tag based, so they'll only appear when those words are searched. So you can go in and review those, activate resources, edit them, remove tags if you need to, all within the recommender section of the console. I just wanted to call out the Summon Customer Survey. You may have seen it come across the listserv recently. It's all about interface configurations in the API. We're doing this in conjunction with the Summon Product Working Group as part of Illuna. We really want to learn more about how you customize the Summon user interface, what services you integrate with Summon, and how do you leverage the Summon API to get it to do what you need. And the idea is here, we're gathering information that'll help us through Illuna, and work with Illuna to provide webinars and education or some interactive sessions around that type of information. It'll also help us inform us here at Ex Libris in development for the roadmap and things like that. So if you can take a moment to fill that out. The URLs there on the screen will also make all this material available after the webinar. That is open through May 23rd, so please take some time to respond to that. That brings me to the end of my remarks.